Hey, Ron here. This video is about pivots, and in the VRMM, the virtual reality market mapping, pivots are looked at differently. First of all, the main concern is the characteristics of what I classify as J pivots. What is J? Well, J is from the middle letter in the word major, close to the middle. Yeah, it's middle. Major, and so it's MAJOR with the J in the middle, and so we're looking for major pivots. And of course, if you look at major pivots on a weekly chart, they're going to be different than on a daily chart, and differently on an hourly chart and stuff like that. And typically what they'll be is one or two classes higher. So on an hourly chart, typically your major pivots will be daily pivots, and typically on a daily chart your major pivots are going to be weekly or monthly, sometimes quarterly, but usually weekly, monthly is pretty good. So what we're looking at here is what are the characteristics, what labels, what can we look for at a major pivot? Because in using this particular technology, what we'd like to do is to look at a market and say, well, where are we now? We're at J or J plus 1, J plus 2, and that's because that's the way I look at a market. I look at J as the major, J plus 1, J plus 2, J plus 3, then I might say J minus 1 or J minus 2. I'm really not concerned with all these other little things. So, and in different patterns, I'm going to have different relevancies in terms of what the pivots are. So, and a lot I'm going to ignore. So, without further ado, first category, first type of pivot, let's say, is a is at a Newton. Okay, and Newton's really simple. There's three different ways of calculating the basic Newton. Let's see if we can get you some pictures. Here we go. So to calculate the basic Newton, it's really simple, really straightforward. Let's take a look. Not a great example. Here we go. Great example. So we simply take one way of calculating it is we take the J, which is this one here. We go back one and then draw the center line and then go back one more, and it's action and reaction. If when you draw this line here, prices hit this line, it's very appropriate, or go past it especially, it's very appropriate to then draw the action line from this point here. Okay, so that would be that's one way. And then of course, as you know, another way of determining the pivot is the extended model, where you're looking at a reaction line using this as an action point. And then if this, in rare cases, you would simply use the center line, because it takes so darn long for prices to get down to the center line, which doesn't happen here, of course. And in that case, you may use the center line. So, and that's really, really rare. Okay, so the first type we've determined is J. Okay, is the Newton, and factor P when 0.4 is an MPL. Okay, so you covered the first two. Okay, good. Next one is at an ORE, right? And remember that prices at an ORE have a tendency to go strongly through the ORE line for some reason. It's really kind of neat. So one would definitely not put an order in at the ORE line. That would be kind of silly, because they're going to go strongly through it, and you can usually get a much better price. Let's see, it says here at a reaction line. Yes, this one here. This is another rare event, and this is at a reaction line when you have when these Christmas tree patterns, in other words, when the market is just extremely strong and going crazy and stuff. And so what happens is that when this rare event occurs, you draw your center line and you draw your action line from down here, which is the previous major pivot, and your reaction line is up there, and so it would be normal to have a J pivot up here. Okay. Ironically, in some cases, it is then normal to have a J pivot over here. But you really need to see 5 pivots in the pattern. Okay. Okay. Now remember that at the Newton, sometimes the Newton is one of those quick 5-bar moves, one of those quickie moves, and so it's real normal to have at what prices go from a J pivot that might be a Newton to another one, and that not be a P1, but actually wind up being a Newton. Right? Okay, and you'll see this in the videos here and there, and when we all these concepts are going to be communicated at various times in the videos because these are all the things we run up against. At a sandbar, sandbars are lovely, and they're nice, they're exact, and J is at a sandbar. At an EML, it's very normal for there to happen that prices happen to have it. Rather than turn at the ML or something at pivot 5, they turn at an EML. That's just happens a lot more often. Okay, having an EML by itself does not mean it's a major pivot, even though it often is. Okay. The other thing you would find at a J or a major pivot is an EPF. Let's go back and see that again. We've seen this so many times. Let's see, where's good old HOTT? That was a nice example of it. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, here was your major pivot, and here's your EP. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, so there was your EP. It's not unusual to have an EP at a major. Just not unusual at all. Okay. And I can show you times when the top of the stock market, the S&P and stuff was an EP. Let's see if we can find that. Let me see. There we go. Beautiful. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so this wound up being this EP wound up occurring at a J pivot. So it's real common to have those. Okay. At the J. The J finishes off the EP pattern. Okay, let's see. What else is on the list? I mean the number of things that occur here. Look at this. This is your EML. Down here, it's just uncanny. Oh, golly gee. Now, one of the things can be a not, even though it can be a not, even though I don't necessarily look for that. But that can show its head there. Okay. More often that I look for that to be a pivot J minus 1, but anyhow. Okay, near a 5x. This one's kind of interesting. Where's our 5x? There's no 5x there. I just had a good pair of them. Is that a 5x? Yeah, it's a mess, but it's a 5x. Wait a minute. Yeah. 5x is you have is you take here's j plus 1, j plus 2, j plus 3, j plus 4, plus 5, j plus 4. Okay, so and there's j is your final j. So you take the pivot before that one, and then the one after. So you have j plus 1, and then you take j minus 1. Anyway, you have a 2p line, and you have an ML, and it comes in quite often quite near the j pivot. Okay, here's another one. Comes in quite often right near these two here. So many people look for these. Prices used to go past 2 lines in one day. It doesn't happen anymore because there's so many people looking for these darn things. Let's see, here's one that Peter noticed down here. And this was a smaller version down here. Okay. Let's see what else is on the list. At or near a Newton A line from J plus 3. Let me see. Goes near or at a Newton A line from J plus 3. It doesn't really happen that much, so I wouldn't. 0, I have to think about this. 0, 1, 2, 3. Oh yes, it does happen a lot. What am I saying? Oh, this is like all the time. Okay, so okay, let's see how this works out. Okay, so you've identified this here as a j minus 1. Okay, and then what happens is you draw your 0, 0, 4, and or your j to j minus 1, and here comes your j, and what happens is quite often the j will come right near this line here that is an action line that comes from the j minus 2. Here's j minus 1 minus 2. Right? So this is a real nice area up here. It's a little bit past this here, and sometimes it will actually make this point. Okay. Just for grins, let's see what happened here. Oh, there weren't 5 pivots on the way, which is interesting. There we go. See, it's not unusual. So you have, when your prices are down here, let's say, okay, it's a good idea to, okay, you look at this one here and you say, well, here's your major. Now here's one, and then here's some other pivots, and this one counts as a j minus 1, and as you learn the characteristics, you'll see why. And then you simply say, well, just for grins, let's draw the 0. Let's draw the Newton, and we draw this one here with these action points, and of course prices go through them. So what you do is you go back in time to this guy here, and boom, just really, really pretty. Okay. Now, one of the things you do have to make allowances for, and that is for holidays. This chart here does not include holidays, so if I were to draw this with that in mind, with holidays in mind, I would probably get a little bit of a different result. Let's see. I'm eyeballing this area here as I'm drawing this. It comes out right down there. Okay, so here's your Newton point, which is on your list of points where J's are made. Okay, so that's your characteristics of J pivots, characteristics of major pivots. Okay, there is your list. And I I normally don't even bother looking for the ORE, but sometimes it does come about. The other things are so prevalent. I did this all before the ORE, before I really understood the ORE. So this is what we have, and there'll be other videos that'll cover the other J characteristics, and this is characteristics of J pivots. See you next time.